Audrey leads AIPH's international work on plant health, bringing together research, global data, and industry expertise to support resilient, high health plant production. In a contribution today, Audrey introduces the AIPH's Unified Framework for Plant Health, an evidence-based, internationally aligned structure developed from the 2021 AIPH Plant Health Survey and a global analysis of voluntary plant health standards. She will outline how the framework brings consistency to biosecurity management across borders, explains its 5 core components, and show how it guides countries and industries to implement strong, auditable, and future-ready plant health systems. I've put the bar high for you, Audrey. Please.
Thank you very much, Jack, for that introduction. Yes, hello to you all. I've met some of you previously. Nice to meet some of you for the first time today. I'm Audrey Timm. As Jack says, I'm going to speak to you today about the work that AIPH is doing in plant health, specifically looking at developing a unified framework, voluntary audit-based plant management in ornamental horticulture. Some background as to the work that AIPH does in plant health and the reasons why we're getting into this. The International Year of Plant Health in 2020, set up by the IPPC, International Plant Protection Convention, looked at unifying trade across global plant production systems with a view to managing biosecurity. And as part of this, in response to the International Year of Plant Health, AIPH set up a plant health survey in 2021. We surveyed our members, we surveyed the industry. It was covered through 25 countries. It crossed 15 horticultural sectors. And part of this was in response that it's about 540 billion, and from what Matt says, it's probably grown a lot since then, just thinking about New Zealand's threats. Of the risk to global agriculture in any plant health issues in terms of managing biosecurity. So we looked at this and we looked at surveying the members, and one of the questions that we asked was where is the biggest threat from plant health, pests and diseases in their sector? And it came up that about 78% of them, no, the highest one was in trade of live plants and cut flowers, with growing systems sort of the second. But if you think about that from trade in live plants and cut flowers, well, that's what our industry is about. Thinking about how big that issue is, these are just some images from the AIPH International Statistics Flower and Plants Yearbook 2025, showing the importance of international trade in our sector. The map with the green shows trade in and out of and around Europe. The 2 world maps show exports and imports. And responding to the fact of IPPC and one of their International Year of Plant Health mantras was that plant pests and diseases do not respect national borders and they don't show passports. So how do we as an industry support biosecurity? Part of our International Plant Health Survey, the QR code will take you to the page. You can download the full report. So we asked, is there a need for a voluntary international plant health and biosecurity standard? Yes, this is the 78%. They said yes. The no's, we interrogated that, but further and partly was because they really needed a little bit more information, or they were responding to a sector that was very local trade, and therefore it was one-to-one conversations around plant health rather than some regulatory aspects. So responding to that, we did a review of the voluntary audit-based systems currently in place excuse me, around the world. And we reviewed them, remembering that voluntary is non-governmental, even if it might be done in conjunction and collaboration with government. Audit-based, it's externally validated, and very much industry-led. And so we were looking at aspects of that. So very much like beyond the legislative framework, and reviewing those people that are doing work in and around the industry. In and around the industry, we came up with 10 common criteria of a voluntary standard. These are the top 4. The next slide will show the next 6. It's quite involved, quite wordy, so I'll just pop through a couple of highlighted words. So the common criteria, it delivers strong levels of biosecurity, and it's ingrained throughout the whole business, not restricted to any one aspect. Very much a systems approach, and very much led by monitoring and managing and being an active system. Incorporates the principles of HACCP, Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point, and part of it is a non-prescriptive elements, which means that they deliver but don't make demands on how the response is delivered. There are definitely some prescriptive elements, some things that the voluntary standard must have. Very much including levels of traceability, so if there are problems, it can be traced back to how, where, and when, from a point of view of adapting. Record keeping is part of that, internal and external auditing, and very much about allocating responsibilities. Whose responsibility is it to do a certain aspect? Do they know it? Are they trained in it? And responding to the traceability, delivering continuous improvement on biosecurity. So we came up with these common criteria. The QR code there would take you to the IPPC website, where these criteria were posted on an INF, an information report, at IPPC CPM, don't you love acronyms, in last year. So that was CPM 19. And part of that, bringing it into the information paper, was making IPPC aware of the work that AIPH is doing. We represent the global ornamental horticulture sector, and we want to manage the positive sector's role in contributing to a biosecure future and plant health. And from making IPPC aware of this, we are opening the conversation for their collaboration. I mentioned we looked at the voluntary standards around the world. We've identified 6 that all encompass those 10, in some one way or another, those 10 criteria. Very pleased that you've already heard from Biosecure HACCP. Thank you very much to Celeste for that. Thank you very much, Matt, for talking about Plant Pass in New Zealand. The others are the Clean Plants Program in Canada, Plant Healthy in the UK, SANC in USA, which is very much also about interstate transport of material as well as international, and the Italian Vivi Fiori quality standard, which has grown tremendously in the last couple of years. So these 6 are very much part of our frame of reference in developing the unified framework. We've come up with a review of those 6. It was very much, we've spoken about AI a bit today already. It will come up again in conversations. Our intensive review used generative AI with very, very well-structured prompts about what we were asking for, and an internal review before we validated the unified framework. So we've come up with a unified framework for a voluntary audit-based plant health management standard. It's based on 5 parts. This is a broad outline. The foundational concepts and commitment very much set up the scope of what it's trying to do and who would be involved. The program implementation and certification is about how it is managed and how it is audited and reported and regulated. Hazard analysis and risk control is understanding quite where the main problems are. This is very much localized. Operational control is very much the systems approach. And then part 5 in verification, how non-conformance and improvement are managed. That's the outline, the 5 aspects of it. I'll touch on a couple of them a little bit more. What we're looking at is how the unified framework might work. It is part of giving the existing voluntary standards that meet the 10 criteria, that level of global validation and benchmarking, which gives them a bit more confidence and a bit more open conversations. For industry bodies or regions that currently don't have a plant health management standard, the unified framework is intended to assist them to develop one. So part of the government's administration is setting out what a government agency or industry body would be required to do. And this is about formal documented policy. It's administering the standard, reporting how they would manage the certification process, how the audit schedule would be set, and really the structure of overseeing the accreditation of the auditors. In the operations and biosecurity procedures, this is part 4. These are the protocols for production systems, and this is very much part the prescriptive and non-prescriptive aspects of it. So it's how the businesses manage aspects such as site hygiene, how supply chain and incoming materials are managed, inspections, quarantines, what monitoring IPM that might fit into the production and plant health controls, and traceability and dispatch. The HACCP asset of it, we see very much as how the regulatory system would see local risks, the very high risks. Currently, some of the current voluntary systems have add-on modules which specify how the control points for specific diseases. Xylella's already been mentioned. Any aspects such as waterborne issues, phytophthora, and that is very much the locally relevant aspects, which is what regulatory sets out and how they are incorporated into a unified framework, very much aligning with legislation. So I've given you a bit of the background as to why AIPH started this. We need, as an industry, to still maintain global trade of our products. AIPH sees our role as assisting the global industry in having a future. We've set up the unified framework. We've also set up a plant health forum. The plant health forum currently consists of the representatives of the 6 current standards. We've presented the progress on the Unified Framework and the Plant Health Forum to IPPC, and the QR code there will take you to the IMF paper that's actually currently being presented in Rome this week, but we're here, so we're not there. But IPPC will know about it. So we've got the Plant Health Forum, the current 6. The Unified Framework hasn't been distributed broadly yet because the Plant Health Forum Terms of Reference states that those 6 whose work is largely directing the content of the Unified Framework are reviewing it first. And once the review has been done, we will then develop a draft and then release it. Excuse me. Feedback so far is, I'm relieved to say, very positive, that it is a very good unified framework. There are a couple of aspects that we need to have a little bit of internal discussion on. And then we'll extend the Plant Health Forum to include representatives of IPPC, the NPPOs, and then work with them as to how we can align a unified framework or any current voluntary standard that is in alignment, already harmonized with the unified framework, to facilitate what we like to call frictionless trade across international borders. Celeste mentioned this morning about a grower who has adopted biosecure HACCP, and that has reduced inspections, reduced cost. We would like to see that sort of a model being rolled out on a global scale. We fully respect all of the regulations. We will continue to adhere to them. What we're trying to do with this is to make the NPPO's job easier, to fulfill IPPC ambitions and aspirations for a future for healthy plant trade in the future. So we'll be working with them how to get that recognized. There's some details about the unified framework. If a country or region would like to adopt a new one, what are the processes of validating that it actually does meet the criteria in the unified framework? At this stage, the intention is that the Plant Health Forum, as it stands now, or perhaps a subcommittee of it, will be the overseeing body that will manage that validation. So ultimately, what we are trying to do is we are trying to get widespread adoption of voluntary plant health standards, whether it is a unified framework in new countries, or whether it's really creating a greater awareness of the benefits of current and existing voluntary plant health frameworks that, and to increase the adoption of it. And we believe by doing this, AIPH will help secure trade approval and movement of plants and protect the integrity of the global horticulture industry. So very pleased to present that to you here. You've had the two national frameworks presented to you. This is the idea on a global scale, and would look forward to your comments and your input. And if you would like to nominate someone to join the Plant Health Forum, please do let me know. You can find me here, find me online, find me on the AIPH website. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. This is really at the heart of AIPH, collecting the international knowledge of our members, share it among our members, and setting standards based on the experience and knowledge of our members. So that's, I think, a very important activity of AIPH.